It seems to me that, and I picked up another book that's pretty mainstream by Joel Furman,
Yeah, the one called Eat to Live.
Eat to Live. Yeah,
The revolutionary formula for fast and sustained weight loss.
right. And that's another one that supports the idea of the vegan diet.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that I saw cited was a study called the China study. And I did some quick research on that on the internet, and it looks like the China study was pretty flawed. I mean, there was a lot of problems with it. They didn't really have a lot of data. They didn't actually prove what he says that they proved. So the point of all this is that there's just a lot of confusion out there because all these books, they look on the surface like they have great information and it's all scientifically proven. But when you start digging into it, a lot of these studies are just not even, they're flawed. It's not something that you can even trust. So even though there's the little annotation, the little number where you can flip to the back of the book, and it seems like, how could it be wrong if they put that in?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are wrong.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to consider in the realm of nutrition is confirmation bias. People are looking for what they want to find, and so they only find what they're looking for. And they're disregarding any sort of falsifying evidence. And one thing that you and I have stressed is to look and make sure that what you're saying is actually validated by the facts. And if you come across new facts that could invalidate what you're saying, to inspect that and make sure that you're on the right track. Because that's the only way you can really be objective in this process. Now, granted, most people can't spend all their time in a medical library and looking through all these different journals. Because if you try to look at these things online, they say, oh, you got to pay us $35 to look at this one article.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing, even though most of these articles are generated at the taxpayer's expense through these research facilities, they do a double whammy, and so you can only access them if you have a college campus Wi-Fi network or something like that, where you can get access based on the university system. So it's hard to find anything more than just the abstracts, but if you just look at the abstracts, you can kind of get a feel for, the way that scientists look at things. This may or may not be contributing to this. The evidence tends to point in this direction because you're dealing with just a select sample of people and you have all these different confounding variables that are hard to really pin down. I mean, the best studies are going to be controlled studies, and they're going to be, random samples of people chosen according to specific criteria. But especially with nutrition studies, it's hard to get compliance with the subjects to make sure that they're eating exactly what the study says they should be eating, right, in each different group. So more stringent studies will be the ones that have the subjects eat food that they're being given by the study, that the researchers themselves are giving them the meals, rather than having the subjects determine what they're supposed to eat based on that criteria. So if you look at the dynamics how studies are done, it's important to look at all those different factors and find out exactly, okay, is this really a valid, reliable source for the evidence? Or is it just another thing to, make a mental note of and compare and contrast it with the other studies that you find?
Right. And even in that Skinny Bitch book, they talk about doing your own research. And I think that's really important because we have internet access. You can find the truth about things pretty quickly. I mean, you can do a couple of Google searches and get to the bottom of it.
Well, at least we could get to the starting point of the bottom of it because, like I said, usually in the actual studies, you can just find the abstracts.
Right.
And I'm going to go to the library sometime this week to ferret out the nature of this one study, carbohydrate quantity and quality in relation to body mass index. And it's done by this researcher who recommends a high-carb, low-fat diet as the end-all be-all for weight loss, or at least managing your body mass index. And the body mass index is fraught with problems too, because they don't take into account body fat measurement or the muscle mass either.
Do you think if I wanted to, could I find a study that supports the idea that eating donuts is really healthy and will help me stay fit?
I think this guy actually recommends that in the article. I'll have to look at the study, but I'm sure there is a study we could do to validate donut consumption.
Awesome.
Would you prefer the glazed donuts or just the ones that are frosted on the top?
Oh, I think I'm going to go chocolate old-fashioned.
Chocolate old-fashioned, yeah.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of when I was in college and I was doing a lot of swimming. One time we had a Saturday morning workout and my friend and I decided to go to the donut shop, which was kind of a tradition after the Saturday workouts. Usually we had a group, but that morning it was just the two of us, and we ended up getting a dozen donuts. And we sat there and we looked at each other and we, of course, said, well, can we finish the whole thing? And so then it was a challenge. And then
And you
so we had
said
to finish.
only if we get a gallon of orange juice to wash it down.
No, no, nothing, not even water. So we sat there and pounded 6 donuts each.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought it was okay because I just swam like 10,000 yards. So what's the big deal, right?
Yes. Well, the big deal in that regard is that you secreted a whole bunch of insulin to deal with all those donuts. And if they
Yeah.
were the deep fried donuts, they've got lots of fat in them too, which is a double whammy. You don't want to be eating a lot of carbs with a lot of fat because
It's probably the single worst food you can eat, right? Donuts. I mean, they've got just about everything wrong with them.
very well could be. So donuts are okay in moderation. A donut once in a while, every 10 years, a donut, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So I've had my fill for my life, I think.
But there are a lot more healthy things to eat, obviously. And that's kind of the point of our book, Healthy Mind, Fit Body. We go through a detailed account of what actually is the most beneficial way to be eating and coming to terms with that mentally, like this psychological process, because it seems like most people that are advocating this diet, that diet, sticking to their particular point of view, aren't really receptive to new evidence or aren't really willing to change the way they think about things. So they get stuck in a mental rut in that regard.
Yeah, it goes back to my point I was making before the show that people get married to their ideas.
Hmm.
And I tried really hard not to marry my ideas because, I mean, for years I thought low fat, high carb was the best way to go. And that's what was drilled into my head.
I did too, actually.
Yeah, so once I read the new studies that were being done on the low carb diets, I decided to try it. And then, what do you know, it worked. So I changed my mind on that topic. But I find that a lot of people just get stuck. It's almost like a religion where they get stuck on one thing and that's it. And the low fat thing seems to be the one that has stuck with a lot of people.